In the last episode of Getting Practical with Digital Media, I emphasised the importance of thinking of blogging as content creation, and not simply an avenue for the written word alone. In this video, I'm going to focus in more detail on integrating other media, particularly visual media, into blog posts. Integration is the key word here, as other kinds of media included in a blog post should be relevant to the overall post and contribute to the meanings that are being conveyed. As I said in the Periscope I drew on last time.
But you don't want to just throw in a few pictures because you think they look pretty. They should be integrated and make a point in themselves. They need to relate to the written blog post as well, because that's the whole point. I could take you through, and I might in this seminar, I won't for Periscope, but I could take you through the latest blog post I did, and all of those pictures, all of that complements the meaning that I'm making in the text. So you want to structure it so that your content is not just thrown in to get, so you've got 1, 2, 3 tweets or whatever. You don't want to just do it like a checklist. You want to think, how do I make a really engaging blog post? Through writing and bringing in some other content to complement and enhance my meaning. So hopefully that helps as well.
And to help more here, I'm going to take you through the thinking and decisions behind that exact same blog post I was talking about there. Okay, so the blog that I wanted to speak to here is called TIFF, the Beach and Human Experience. And if you haven't read this before, it might be a good idea to go to my site, pause this video and have a read through this. And you might get a slightly clearer understanding of what I'm talking about when I talk through the integration of visual media here. I will give a bit of a summary of the content, the subject matter of the blog. It was based around a specific example of when my partner and I took Tiffany to the beach, and I extrapolated out from that and talked about broad issues of online identity and whether or not social media and other digital technologies have transformed the nature of human existence and identity. So it was, big ideas, but doing so within a specific example that I came back to a couple of times throughout the post. And that's significant in itself. So the first thing I wanted to say here is that even though this blog was first written a couple of years ago, I've still got a really clear memory of all the little decisions that I made in incorporating the media and the processes that I undertook to do that into the blog. So it's really kind of significant point, I think, to sort of highlight that there is a lot of thought that can go into visual content to make it relevant, to make it dynamic, to make it of interest to the audience. And I'm actually going to do this part of the video, speaking to the blog, completely unscripted. So it'll be interesting to see how I go. But I'm showing you here that I'm even just remembering it as I speak about it. The first image here is the one on the left, the feature image, which is very important given the template I've chosen for this blog. I want to emphasize here that it's not essential or compulsory to use a feature image or a blog template that has a feature image as a really significant part of the post. I just really like the template that I've used on this site. But I've got to make sure that I do use a feature image given the nature of this template that I've got. And I added this in after the first time I made this blog. It was earlier in the year 2016, and I ended up revising it when I had a new template for the site. So I added this one in. Now, this image here was one that I had in my possession. My partner had taken it of herself, and it really fits in with the theme of who was at the beach. And the silhouette on the sand does sort of evoke different ideas around presence and existence and so on. So I really like that image, so I added that in. What I want to say here about this image is that I could very easily go to Flickr and find a Creative Commons licensed image that I could use. So this could very easily be an image that I could use from Flickr of a similar type that no one would actually know whether or not it was mine unless they check the credits down the end of the blog. So it's actually kind of significant point insofar as you can use visual media that others have made in ways that are actually really authentic. The image on the right here, I wanted to talk about a little bit because this is a really important one. Obviously, my questions there are about who was at the beach, and using a photograph of a beach, the ocean, with no one there does sort of resonate with those questions that I'm starting the blog with. What I wanted to highlight here is that my initial image, which is on the screen now, actually showed a very different picture. And I cropped that image, and I made sure that, one, it was a better image when I cropped it anyway, but it makes more thematic sense for me to have cropped that, changed the meaning of the image in a way so that it fitted in with the meaning of the blog post I was trying to convey. So that's just a little bit of insight into what happened with that image there. Going down a little bit here, and you can see that I spread out the visual content. I actually started off, I had a teaching video which had this little story here within that relates to the blog post and from which the blog post initially came. That was in a YouTube video, and I had shared that video using a link that directed the viewer or the blog reader directly to the part of the video I wanted them to watch. Of course, it doesn't stop them watching it when I needed them to, and I actually decided when I revamped this blog the latest time, the latest iteration of this blog, I actually stopped doing that and I deleted that YouTube embed and I tweeted out the specific part of the video that I wanted to use. So it works a lot better in that way. So moving down here, I have got an image here, and I wanted to compare my use of this image of a woman who we actually spoke to, and it's all in the video and the blog post that talked about where this image comes from and the meanings in which I was trying to get to there. But what's really important to note here is that initially I had this image which is really central to the kind of the questions and the overall theme of the blog. I had it much larger in the initial post and I was never really happy with it. It probably stayed like this for 12 to 18 months and I was sort of resharing it in different trimesters with different students, and I was never really happy with how the image looked. It was just taking up too much space there, but it also did evoke the isolation, you know, that question of someone's at a distance and we don't really know how she's using the mobile phone. Is she taking a photo? Is she taking a selfie? She's sort of an enigmatic presence in the blog post there. And I was wanting to keep that distance visually from the photograph. I certainly didn't want to crop the photograph to make it look like I was much closer to this figure. But when I decided to change it, I did make that image smaller, wrap the text around it, and I think aesthetically it does look a lot better that way in the blog. So and you can see that I wrap the text around images. Instead of doing sort of chunk of text, big image, chunk of text, I quite often, not always, but I do quite often wrap the text around images. This is an example. I was talking about Creative Commons before. This is an example of that where I've gone to Flickr, I've found a picture probably by just typing selfie into Flickr, and I have given the credit in a caption there using the WordPress caption function after I've uploaded the image. Now that image could very well be of us at a different time at the beach. It's not, but it does evoke certain, you know, universal kinds of questions about people go to the beach, they use media, and this is the more general kind of questions that I've talking about in the blog, and not necessarily just specific to the beach, but it's got that thematic connection again to the beach, to selfie taking, to media making, and so on. So that's a use of a Creative Commons image there. And I've shared a YouTube video there from another person. I won't go into all the detail of that because I want to mostly focus again here on the use of Creative Commons images. This links up to that sort of the point that I'm making in the blog post is around the utopian perception of childhood and the good old days, and you hear about it quite a bit, and I'm blogging about this saying, you know, this idea of harking back to the past, the time before digital technology as some kind of paradise is quite flawed. So what I probably typed in here was either utopia or paradise into Flickr. I found something that wasn't beach related, and I probably might have even found some beach images under utopia or paradise, I don't know, but this seemed to really fit with the point that I was making, that this idea of paradise is actually quite flawed. So I kind of liked the less beautiful image with paradise signposted there. So that's the ideas and the thinking behind that image. This one I remember looking for quite some time. I was trying to find a robot dog on the beach to sort of again raise this idea of technology and what it's doing to us and so on. And I actually remember I was trying to find that and I couldn't find anything. And in the end, even though I really wanted a picture of a robot dog at the beach, this really beautiful image here of a robot dog on grass actually kind of, even though I wasn't looking for it, it sort of brought out different meanings that were quite complementary, and they did enhance the blog post more, I think, than a picture of a robot dog at a beach. Because in the end, I was actually saying in the blog post that no, we've not been turned into robots. So using the conflict between the images of beach and grass and so on there actually kind of fit thematically with what I wanted to do anyway. This isn't actually the reality that I wanted to depict. It's actually visualizing a reality that in an ironic way that I don't actually agree with. So that was the thinking behind the image there. And then I go on to sort of drawing attention to the different kinds of audiences. I talk about university students here, and using an image again from Creative Commons that sort of could represent a lot of potential implied readers of the blog does complement the meaning that I'm making here. And again, it links back to the selfies that I've been writing about and visualizing and so on. So there's a lot of different visual media there, and when I get down to the conclusion of the post and I come back to that main example, the specific example, I conclude with the point that yes, we were at the beach, and then having an image in that regard does sort of bring some closure to the post and cements my argument in relation to it. I could no doubt talk further about that blog post and find even more points to make about the visual media that I included within it. But now it's your turn. Jump on your site, make a blog post, and integrate some media in relevant, appropriate, and dynamic ways. I've given a lot of advice there, but as Tiffany reminds us, learning by doing is the only way.